So guys, settle in today as we unravel the epic tale of Anikulakpo, one of my absolute favorite Nigerian movies. The day I watched this movie, I was absolutely mind blown, and I'm so excited to talk about it today. It's a tale of forbidden love, greed, betrayal, and of course, the mystical forces that defy death itself. Of course. Yeah. So this captivating journey through the ancient Yoruba civilization will leave you questioning the true cost of power and the fragility of trust. Let's dive in. Our story begins with Saro. Saro is a humble but ambitious weaver who is traveling through the kingdom of Oyo in search of a better life. There, he meets Awaru, an older businesswoman who, upon finding out his identity and circumstances, offers to buy him some food and a job. At the palace, the king discusses affairs of state with his cabinet. We are introduced to the four queens, Olori Agba, Olori Wojuola, Olori Sukomi, and the youngest, Arolake. There is a huge rivalry between the two senior queens and Arolake, the youngest. This is shown in their various mockeries of Arolake, who is without child after years and years of marriage. They also prevent their children from assisting her in any way, making arguments with any given opportunity. Meanwhile, Awarun and Saro's encounter continues. True to her word, she feeds Saro and employs him in her clay molding business. At night, however, she visits him in his chambers and spends the night with him. Her true intention from the start. The following day, she favors him with lots of food to the jealous eyes of his fellow workers. So we find out later the reason behind the jealousy and bitterness of the other wives. When Wojuola complains to the king, she laments that he prefers spending the night with his youngest queen, sparing little time for her. The king, however, won't hear it. He decides to leave her chambers and goes to Arolake's bed instead. The following day, Wojuola visits Arolake, seemingly to return a mirror she had borrowed. She, however, gives the young queen a very stern warning instead, due to the king's visits to her bedchamber when it's her turn. Arolake's explanations that neither does she entertain nor encourage him fall on deaf ears. Wojuola then brutally remarks that while some are meant to bear princes and princesses, others are merely meant for the king's pleasure. She breaks the said mirror before leaving the room. Arolake, frustrated by the abuse she receives daily from her co-wives, decides to retaliate. On Sukomi's night, she feigns a fever to get the king's attention, seducing him when he comes to check on her instead, as the older wife awaits him eagerly, finally giving up in silent tears when she realizes he's not coming. Awarun sets up a weaving business for Saro, now her bona fide lover. On the night she fails to visit, he discovers her with another man. Confronting her the next day, she dismisses him, reminding him of his place. She tells him no one can question her actions, as she is in no need of a husband. Saro recalls advice he'd received, cautioning him of Awarun's promiscuity and man-eating ways. During the nighttime, however, she consoles him, telling him she cannot marry him as he is too young for her. She wishes for him a beautiful young woman and family. She informs him that she's obtained permission for him to make clothes for all of the king's women, which makes a saddened Saro immensely happy. And so the following day, he visits the queens to present his stock for their selection. He meets the senior queens first, where Princess Omawumi, Wojuola's daughter, appears to be taken with him. After he's done with them, Arolake comes for her turn, and she and Saro are immediately drawn to each other at first sight. Trapped in a loveless marriage, Arolake finds Saro's humble charm irresistible, and so that night, on his way home, she ambushes and seduces him. Later, the princess visits Arolake. They discuss a potential prince of her father's choosing as her spouse someday, which the princess refuses. She hints to the fact that she finds the fabric weaver handsome, which indicates to Arulake her interest in him. Despite the dangers, Saro and Arulake embark on a secret love affair. Their meetings are shrouded in passion and secrecy, with the potential consequences of their actions looming heavily over them. Saro and Awarun's relationship has also come to an end when she seemingly indicates knowledge of his extracurricular activities. She tells him as she does not want any trouble. She has chosen to stay away from him, advising him to stay away from trouble as well, because he is taking what is not his to take. Saro, however, continues to see Arulake where they recall their pasts. She has been trapped in a loveless marriage ever since she was 15, and he was sold to pay off his parents' debt when he was only a child. They decide to elope that night. However, their secret has been discovered by the princess, who has been suspicious of Arulake's nightly outings. Omawumi, feeling betrayed, confronts Arulake. In a fit of rage, she exposes them to her mother, Arulake's worst rival. A hunt ensues for Saro. The punishment for dishonoring the king is brutal. Saro is dragged into the public square and beaten to death, a chilling display of the king's wrath. His lifeless body is abandoned in the wilderness as a warning to others, where Arulake, who went into hiding the moment the princess left, finds him and weeps over her fallen lover. Just when it seems like the end for Saro, the mystical Akala bird descends from the heavens. This bird, a creature of Yoruba mythology, is seen to possess the power to bring the dead back to life and guide souls to the afterlife. The bird resurrects Saro and questions him on his current plight. It deems him unworthy of life, preparing to return him to death. However, Arulake, who has been watching from the shadows, immediately jumps out of hiding and scares it off. She secretly steals the bird's gourd, which possesses its power over life and death. Arulake and a fully resurrected Saro flee on an arduous journey, with her supporting him every step of the way, until he recovers from his injuries, both uncertain of their destination. Luckily, they encounter a hunter who helps and guides them to the distant Ojumo kingdom. Upon arrival, they are met with a tragic scene, the death of the hunter's own son. It is here that Arulake pulls Saro aside and reveals the secret gourd she had taken from the Akala bird. She hands it to him and convinces him to use it, declaring it a power God has blessed them with. And so, encouraged by Arulake's words, Saro uses the gourd to resurrect the dead boy, leaving the mourners stunned and scattering in fear. Word of the miracle spreads quickly, and Saro immediately becomes a revered figure, earning the title Anikulakpo, the one who holds death in his pouch. The king grants him an audience and invites him to stay, granting him land and property. Saro and his wife, who he endearingly calls his guardian, are finally free to be together, safe and happy. Saro continues to resurrect the dead, earning immense adoration from the villagers, who shower him with gifts and praise. However, the chief priest grows suspicious and warns the elders about him. He advises them to send Saro away, but they refuse, accusing the priest of jealousy. They, however, summon Saro to the palace and ask him to give the gourd to the chief priest so that he may examine the source of the gourd and ensure it does not bring calamity to the village. Saro, whose once humble demeanor is being replaced by an air of arrogance, refuses, claiming any man who touches the gourd aside from himself will die immediately. Hence, the effect of Saro's newfound power becomes even more evident as his lustful side begins to surface. He betrays Arulake by coveting and taking her servants to bed. resulting in the servant's pregnancy. Saro tries to console his wife by claiming the child belongs to both of them. However, he is secretly pleased with himself as they have been unable to conceive throughout their time together. Arolake, feeling deeply hurt and betrayed, finds Saro's words of consolation only a cruel reminder of her childlessness. His remarks echo the bitter words Wojuwola once said to her. While some women are meant to bear princes and princesses, others merely exist solely for the king's pleasure. Fast forward into the future, Saro has taken 2 additional wives, including the maid he impregnated, completely neglecting Arolake and all she sacrificed for him. The younger wives constantly taunt and abuse Arolake for her barrenness, while Saro stands by, offering no protection or regard for her honor. The once radiant and youthful queen has now become a shadow of her former self, her anguish and suffering reminiscent of her days in the palace. Arolake, who once believed in Saro's love, begins to see the shameless and ungrateful man he has become. Her realization deepens when one of the wives mockingly calls her a queen, revealing a secret from her past indiscretions that only Saro could have shared. Enraged and humiliated, Arolake confronts Saro, accusing him of betrayal. In response, Saro, consumed by his arrogance, raises his hand against her, showing just how far he has fallen. One fateful day, Saro is summoned to the palace. The king's son is dead. Saro, who sees this as an opportunity to solidify his power and satisfy his lust, refuses, requesting for the princess's hand, one he has been secretly coveting, in exchange for the prince's life. This comes as a great shock, as the people remind him of the favor the king bestowed upon him, to which the ungrateful Saro undermines. He craves more power, more wealth, and more recognition. Arolake overhears the servants' whispers about Saro's demands, another painful blow. And so finally, she gathers all of her belongings and leaves his household. When Saro is told of Arolake's departure, he is stunned for barely a second before proceeding to continue his meal. He is called again to the palace when the king accepts his request. When he arrives, Saro makes several attempts to resurrect the prince, but to no avail. He discovers that he has lost his power. Saro realizes the god has been emptied of its contents, a result of Arolake's revenge. She had drained the mystical god of its power before leaving the man who betrayed her, rendering him powerless. Saro sheds tears of regret as a narrator reflects on the story of a man whose excessive pride led to his downfall. The final scene shows Saro lying dead in the forest, with the Akalabed visiting him once more. Anikulakpo is a story that reminds us that power can corrupt even the most humble of hearts, and that trust is a fragile thing that must be protected. We definitely recommend watching it. What did you think of Saro's rise and fall? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic recaps like this one.